Hancock County. And I first met him when I organized an event on Verona Island. And what struck me about Mike then is how down to earth he is, how accessible he is, how he listens to everyone and makes everyone feel important and heard and works with everyone. So that's when I got excited about Mike, and it was a pleasure to work on his congressional campaign in 2002. When I came home to Maine to be executive director at the American Civil Liberties Union of Maine 8.5 years ago, I took a leadership role in a variety of issues. I was a leader in the Coalition for Maine Women, in the Maine Choice Coalition. I served on the executive team of the Same-Sex Marriage Campaign for 7 years. And we got a call, the Maine Women's Coalition, from Mike's staff saying Mike wanted to meet, to sit down with us. And I remember meeting Mike in Waterville, sitting down with him and Sarah Staniford, head of Maine Women's Lobby, talking about women's issues. What Mike brings to this race is what you have already seen here in Lewiston and has been so significant, with his support of veterans right here in the town of Lewiston, his support of economic development, his willingness to listen and stand up for working class interests. I think Mike Michaud is the best candidate for governor because I know he'll stand up for people like my mom and my dad, working class people. I know he'll stand up for veterans like my brother-in-law. And I know he'll stand up for women like me. Mike Michaud, our next.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much, Shenna, for that very kind and very generous introduction. As you can see, we got 3 excellent candidates for federal office running from the state of Maine. So I want to give all 3 of them the best of luck in your race. I also want to thank, I know there are going to be other speakers, the other candidates who are running for office here as well at the state and county and local level. I want to commend you for your willingness to put yourself out there on the front lines, being able to tell your stories, what you want to do for the people here in the state of Maine. I know it's not an easy task to do it, especially the legislators having to deal with our current governor that we currently have. I want to commend all of you for all the hard work that you have been doing and will continue to do as well. The question I get asked quite often, I still get asked quite often, is why would you want to give up a safe seat for Congress to come back and run for governor? And a lot of people think it is because we have a dysfunctional Congress, which we do have a dysfunctional Congress. But I do love my job. I really love the work I've been able to do on veterans affairs issues, on transportation, economic development issue, and trade issues. But the reason why I chose to come back to run for governor is I love the state of Maine more. It's more than just about me. It's about Maine, Maine's people, our future generation. That's why I made that tough decision to ultimately come back and run for governor of the state of Maine. Because I know I had the vision to be an excellent governor, I have the experience to be an excellent governor, and I have the commitment to be an excellent governor. And my vision for Maine is, why don't we as a state build upon our strengths to move the state forward in a positive way? And you look at what our main strengths: small businesses. 95% of the businesses in Maine are small businesses. If we can grow just at the national average, that's 31,000 jobs here in Maine. Small businesses is the backbone of Maine, and we should not forget small businesses. You look at one of our other strengths. We have the youngest farmers in the country per capita. You look at Maine. We have a lot of land here in Maine. There's no reason why we can't, for farming and fishing, be the food basket for New England. That is something I'm very excited about as I go throughout the whole state of Maine, whether it's in Aroostook County, Washington County, Piscataquis County, York County. The enthusiasm out there among the young farmers is just excellent, that we can be the food basket for New England if we put our mind to it. Another strength Maine has is our tourism. Maine's known as vacation land. But we can do much more than just when tourists and get tourists here in the state of Maine. When they go home, there's no reason why we can't market the Maine products, whether it's jams, products, maple syrup. There is an untapped resource out there that we have not taken advantage of when the tourists come to Maine and ultimately leave the state of Maine. You look at energy. It's one of my goals is actually to reduce our dependency on home heating oil by 50% by the year 2030. I know it's an aggressive goal, but we can do it. If you look at our potential here with offshore wind, with tidal power, with solar power, geothermal, we have a lot of potential here, not only to get our dependency on home heating oil by 50% by the year 2030, but we can create those green jobs here in Maine. Maine is the first state in the country actually to be hooked up to the grid and tidal power. And when I was able to get that earmark for that particular project, the only thing I asked them to do was make sure you make it here in Maine. Hire the people here in Maine to do it. So we do have a lot of potential here in the state of Maine to grow our economy, to build upon our strengths that we have. The problem we have is we have a governor who doesn't want to do any of that. We have a governor who thinks negatively of Maine and Maine's people. And that's being reflective throughout the country. As I talk with my colleagues in Congress, when I talk to businesses, they say, why should we move to Maine when your governor doesn't even believe in Maine? We have a lot to offer here in the state of Maine. We're just not building upon the strengths that we have, and we need a chief executive who believes in Maine and her people. And I'll be that chief executive who will brag about Maine each and every day about what we can do here in Maine to really move Maine forward in a very positive direction. And it's great to have all these ideas, but it's another thing to be able to actually implement them. That's where my experience comes in. I've served in the Maine legislature, both on the Appropriation Committee, as well as President of the Maine Senate. And on day one, as governor, we're going to have to deal with a shortfall, with those temporary taxes expiring. And we'll have a lot of work to do to put Maine back on the right track. With my experience working on the Appropriation Committee, actually I was there with Senator Cleveland on the Appropriation Committee, I'll be able to hit the ground running on day one. As President of the Senate, we had an evenly divided Senate, 17 Democrats, 17 Republicans, and 1 independent. And a lot of people thought that was going to be a nightmare, because depending on any given day would depend who was in the majority. But it worked out well. And the reason why it worked out extremely well, matter of fact, is because we sat down and talked. Every day I'd have Republican senators, Democratic senators in my office, all at one time, going over the legislative calendar in an informal way. It did speed up the process, which what we would hope that it would do. But the second thing that it did, the fact that we were meeting in my office every day in an informal way, it built up trust and open line of communication. And that's what's missing today. And you don't take my word for it. All you got to do is look at what this governor has done with all the vetoes that he's handed down. Veto after veto. It shows his inability to be able to work with the legislature, not only Democrats, but also Republicans. You look at that bipartisan compromise that was put together not once, but a couple of times, or actually 3 times, I don't know how many times now, for the expansion under Maine Care under the Affordable Care Act, that would expand access to health care for the 70,000 Mainers, of which 3,000 are veterans, access for their health care. That bipartisan compromise, the governor veto that was put together with Republicans and Democrats, is just unconscionable. And I can guarantee each and every one of you here today that on day one I'll be submitting legislation, if I'm elected governor, to expand access to health care for those 70,000 Mainers. Not only because it's the morally right thing to do, but it's fiscally the responsible thing to do as well. Maine will save over $600 million over a 10-year time frame by expanding access to those 70,000 people. Hospitals will receive an additional $348 million over that same time frame because of the enhanced reimbursement rates under the Affordable Care Act. It's a win-win all the way around. And as governor, I'll make sure that we take care of the people here in the state of Maine, as well as be fiscally responsible for folks here in the state of Maine as well. The other area is when you look at the three candidates who are running for governor. I am the only candidate that does have a proven track record of being able to work across the aisle. I did it when I was president of the Maine Senate, and I can continue to do it as a member of Congress on the Veterans Affairs Committee as well as on the Transportation Committee. Just a couple of weeks ago, actually, I just had the Republican chairman up, Jeff Miller, to tour Togus, the state veterans home, and actually at Bath Iron Works for the christening of the ship. So, you know, I have that ability. I'm the only one that has that ability. The other thing I do want to mention, I hear this question quite often when people say, well, geez, another three-way race, what's going to happen? Well, 2014 is different than 2010, number one. But the big difference, if you look at what happened in 2010 compared to 2014, the first big difference is I'm the new candidate for governor that's running. The other two ran before. and our current governor does have a record.
Oh, yes.
But the big difference is, unlike last time where the Democratic candidate did not have a base, I have a very strong base in the 2nd Congressional District, which tend to be more difficult for a Democrat to win. Although with our great candidates are running this time around, I have no doubt we'll be able to keep that district. So I start off from the get-go with a very strong base. The second big difference this time compared to last time around is the fact that last time around there's a 5-way Democratic primary. And unfortunately in Democratic primaries, even though they all try to say they'll unite behind the candidate that wins, that does not always happen. And unfortunately, that did not happen last time around. This time around, I'm running, I'm unopposed in this race for governor, so I don't have to worry about trying to unite the party. The party actually is united right now, which is a good thing.
Amen.
The other big difference is if you look at this race compared to 2010, yes, I'm getting a lot of good endorsements, whether it's the Sierra Club, Equality Maine, the League of Conservation Voters, a lot of labor organizations, which is a good thing. Those endorsements Democrats usually get. But I'm also getting endorsements that Democrats don't always get, such as the professional firefighters, the Maine Association of Police, and I know we'll be getting some other endorsements as well now that the legislature is out of session. So I feel really good where we're at. But I can't do it alone. I need your help. Yes, we are leading in the polls. Yes, we're doing very well on fundraising. But I need you to continue to work through November. The fact that I am leading in the polls is good news. The bad news, I'm leading in the polls and we're being attacked by both sides. But so we need the resources to run an effective campaign, but we need your ground game as well. And speaking about resources, if you want to, your polls are one thing, but if you want to test the strength of a candidate, look where the money come from. And I know the independent candidate criticized me for where my money's coming from, said, you know, labor and PAC, well, they only can give $3,000 max anyway. But if you look at the over $1 million that we raised, and we outraised both the Republican candidate and the independent candidate when we filed our report in December, even though I got in the race late. We raised over $1 million. 87% of the contributions were from individuals, 87%. All of that, 82% was contributions from individuals here in the state of Maine.
Nice.
Nice.
You break that down even further, because this is another criticism the independent says, well, Mike will do great in the 2nd district, he's not going to do well in the 1st district. All of that 82% for the individuals in the state of Maine, 63% of that came from individuals in the state of Maine in the 1st congressional district.
All right.
Nice.
So I feel really good about it. And after this weekend, I think all the Democrats should feel pretty good about what's going to happen, because the Republicans came out with their Republican platform. They had the convention with Governor Christie's coming up here to help support Governor LePage. We're going to see a real difference between the two parties this weekend with the Republican convention. So I want to ask all of you, are you ready?
Yeah!
Are you fired up?
Yeah! Ready to go? Yeah! Fired up? Yeah! Ready to go? Yeah! Well, let's get to work. Thank you very much.